Hello viewers, we are back on the sampling types. Here we are going to look at volunteer sampling technique as a non-probability sampling technique. In this lecture, volunteer sampling technique canvasses for individuals with certain characteristics who are willing to participate in a study as a research subject. So we are talking about volunteer. When you hear volunteer in anything we do, it means people who participate are not people you select through simple random sampling. It's not people you pick, but people who on their own volition, out of their own volition, is willing to be part of it. Okay. This may involve advertising in newspapers, radio, television, and Google or internet, even in the use of flyers and handbills. So when you want to reach out people through volunteer sampling to know people who participate in the research work, and you want to choose volunteer sampling, yes, it is very, very good. It helps you to cut across the larger environment, a larger population. But in this case, you give opportunity for people to indicate their interest in the participation in the research work. Convenience and accidental sampling is another aspect of non-probability sampling technique of interest. Accidental sampling is a technique that uses only elements which the researcher can reach and are included or used for the study. Just like the name of the title implies, it's a convenient. Accidental sampling, which means you only need people that are convenient for you. If you want to choose students that will participate in a research, you do not say, I must have to go to this particular university. I must have to go to this particular environment. Even if you say you're working in your own university, like I'm a lecturer from Michael University of Agriculture. If I want to choose a student to participate in my research or investigation, and I want to adopt this convenient or accidental sampling, the implication is as I enter into the campus, any student I meet, I say, and I give person questionnaire to become a part of the investigation. Any person you meet, that is by convenience, are working, entering the university, or going to any business or doing anything in the campus, meet and give people. So it is described as accidental. Somebody just jammed. The prevailing factors are the researcher's convenience and economy in terms of time and money. Yes, this is very saving in terms of money, saving in terms of time, because you do not make out time when you go to maybe distribute your questionnaires, or when you are going to go for the research or to look for people that respond. It is at conveniently place you are going. Maybe you visit a friend in another university and you meet teachers or you meet any person you feel that can do it. You just do it at your own convenience. And people you meet accidentally, no booking of appointment. So that's why we say it does not consider whether this element possesses some specific characteristics or not. This is where accidental sampling differs from purposive sampling technique. Remember, the purposive sampling technique is the one that is judgmental, where you have decided, I'm going to work with this group of people. It's different from this one. Examples are as shown below. Television's roving reporters who interviews any person they see in an area, scene or event is an example of making use of volunteers, because as they are moving about to get information about what's happening around them on a particular event or on a particular issue, it's just accidentally any person they bump into, they go. And when they come to you, if you are not willing to respond to them, you don't give them audience. If you are ready to respond to them, you respond to them. Apart from convenience, economy of money and time, the technique has no other advantage. So it's not advisable method of sampling, except that where you want to enjoy your confidence, where you want to save money for booking to move to a place to go and get some people that are expected, that are required to do this. Resulting sampling is biased and not true representative of the population. And this is one of the roles of a good sampling. This is a role of using sample. Any role that cannot be a good representation of population is not a good sampling method, and that sample will have a lot of sampling error. So this particular method is not really advisable, it's not encouraged, but you can do it when you're not doing a very serious research and when you just want to do things like at a convenience. And it is better used by just people who are just trying to get general information about a particular thing. It has the poor generalization. So information you got because it's just people you met and bump into, people you met accidentally, people you met at convenience that you are using. Therefore, you cannot use it to generalize what happened about that issue in a larger population. Major considerations in sampling. You want to look at things you consider whenever you are sampling, because we emphasize so much that sampling is something you cannot do without in a research, especially in a scientific research. And the manner you do the sampling matters. If you do sampling haphazardly, it won't give you what you want. You have to be conscious that you adhere to all the important things you have emphasized to make sure you get a sample that will be a good representation of the population that is expected to cover. The major considerations that we are looking at here are population size. So in sampling, you have to look at the population size. Like we have said before, you can have a target population, you can have accessible population. Good. There are populations that you want to work on and is not so large, it's something you can manage in a research. In that case, there's no need for you to sample. Therefore, say the population is manageable or is of good size for the research. Accessibility of the element. That's what we talk about. If you have a target population and you find that you cannot reach out to all the elements of the target population, you consider the elements of the group you can reach, and that becomes accessibility of the elements. Then you have to also consider time, that is duration of the research work. So when you are trying to do a sampling, in as much as that you are encouraged to sample larger population, to have a larger sample, so there will be a good representation. But as you are trying to pick your sample, as you are trying to draw your sample, you do not draw a sample you cannot manage within the time frame given to you for the research work. And that you have to consider when you are doing your sampling, in as much as you want to get a good representation, as much as you want to reach a good number of people to represent the characteristics in the population, you have to consider money. If there are a particular group or inner group or whatever you want to cover in the sampling, but it will be more capital intensive, which you cannot meet up, you have to consider this ab initio, so it will not affect your work. Another thing to consider is that you have to define your target or accessible population. So you don't just I have a population of lions, no, or a population of teachers, or a population of vice chancellors. You have to define your target. Is it in Nigeria? Is it in Africa? Is it in West Africa? Is it in a particular state? Is it in a particular ethnic group? Is it in a particular this or a particular that? You also have to define your accessible population. You have to narrow it and be specific so people know where you are working and where your generalization can cover. This is meant to ensure that they are comparable. Another thing that you have to consider is the sample size. Sample size should be on the safe side, large enough to allow for sample mortality. So that what do you mean by sample mortality? Sample mortality is a case where you have decided to work with about 400 respondents or 400 participants or 400 elements. That's what you had in mind. You have the large picture, you have ab initio. And when you prepare to work with these people, you give them something, naturally, you should anticipate in advance that not all that you started with may end up with your work. So somewhere along the line, maybe travel out of the place, maybe people gave something to work with you that you're coming back in the next 1 week to see how far. By the time you are coming, they can say, I'm sick or I was sick, I was not able to complete. They say, I've misplaced this. Person will say, once done that, they cannot help be part of people that completed the assignment. Therefore, such people should be considered ab initio to make sure it does not affect the sample size. If you do not consider this in ab initio, the implication is you choose a small size sample and started and you have this sample mortality. At the end, you have a smaller size that will not be justifiable for you to use in the study. You have to apply appropriate sampling technique in line with the purpose of the sampling. Oh, yes, we have said this ab initio when we talk about sampling techniques. Yes, there are particular techniques that are particularly very good and very, very expected of a particular research sample or research problem. The topic you're working on the population you're working with, their objective, your hypothesis, will all affect, will determine, will contribute in your choice of a sampling technique. The sampling technique you use to get you a quality sample that you can work with, that can give you the help you to achieve the purpose and objective of your work. Sampling technique should not be changed midstream for confident sampling. Yes. What are we saying here? We are saying that once we decided that I'm going to use systematic sampling technique, I'm going to use stratified sampling technique, anyone have to maintain and use it to the end. If you say I'm going to use multi-stage or multi-phases, you have to maintain at each stage what you intend to use all through the sampling. You don't hear somewhere along the line, you say, since I cannot get more people I want, let me not divert to confidence or accidental or this. No, you don't do that. You have to be consistent and maintain to the end. Whatever sampling technique you have already decided, I've been sure that will be good for the work. Experimental and control groups must come from the same population. Yes, if you are doing a work that is experimental, which means you have the treatment group and you have the control group, you do not go and get experimental group from out of your population or get a control group out of the population. No, because the control group is also going to help you to determine the impact of what you are doing on the experimental group. Therefore, the same people you are studying, it is from there you're going to cover from them through randomization or through the use of equivalent group. You have to cover out who will serve as a control group and who will serve as experimental group. A good instance is when you are trying to work on SS2 chemistry, for instance, or SS2 mathematics, or any class. If you're working with any class, so maintain that it is from that chemistry class in SS2 within the population you have chosen, maybe a state or education zone you have set to cover. It is from there that are going to pick classes that will represent the experimental and classes that will represent the control. Most often it is even better that you pick the students you want to work with the SS2, so bring them together and shuffle them and divide them into groups that you want to use, some to serve as a control group, some to serve as experimental, for you to get the best result. I want you to note that mortality in a sample refers to a problem that arises when employing a longitudinal design and participants who start the research process are unable to complete the process. Yes, I explained this before. There are people that will say, okay, volunteer, or you have sampled them that are going to be part of this. Somewhere along the line, they are unable to participate and in the research work to the end. Therefore, cannot give you a complete participation. So that leads to mortality of some numbers in your work chosen, on the number of elements chosen. Essentially, the persons begin the research process but fails to complete the entire set of the research procedure. Thank you for listening.